I actually could use it, so thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so Yom Kippur. We'll see if we could do Yom Kippur and Sukkot together, depending on how things go. Hopefully we can, because the continuity from Yom Kippur to Sukkot is actually a really, really deep and beautiful idea how it works. Can we lower this down a little? Yeah. Okay. Record this just in case, because why not? Okay, so Moshe Goldstein, start off with a story today, and I don't know, Francis, someone, right? There was a Jewish kid and a Catholic kid who were in school together. They went to a public school. They lived in a little town somewhere in a village. They were both in public school together. And most of the kids were not religious, and they were both religious kids, different religions, but they related to each other and they were close friends. And throughout school, their friendship got deeper and deeper and stronger and stronger. And by the end of school, as young adults, they were really, really close friends. And Moshe Goldstein went on to be a rabbi, and Francis, whatever. I have to Google a stereotypical Catholic name, but went on to, as you can probably tell by now, it's a fictional story. Went on to become a priest. And they were still good friends, and they spoke a lot, and they stayed in touch. And one time, the rabbi gets a phone call from the priest, and he says, listen, I need to ask you a really, really big favor. Like, I'm double booked tonight. I have confessions. I have to go in and do confessions. And I also have a family wedding, and I didn't realize that I have them both at the same time. I can't do both. Can you do me a really big favor and do the confessions for me? It's like, do confessions? I'm a rabbi. I don't know anything about confessions. We don't do confessions in Judaism. I don't know. Like, how am I going to do something I don't know anything about? He said, listen, trust me. Like, I'm begging you, please. It's really easy. Like, I could be there for the first 10 minutes, and I'll stay in the booth with you together, and we'll do the first few together. You'll see it's a piece of cake. We'll get the hang of it, and then you'll be fine for the rest. I'm telling you, it's easy. Really, please, please, please. He says, you know what? Fine, I'll do it for you. Just to be clear, the fine print is that a Jew is not allowed to go into a church, for the record. But anyways, so they're in the booth together, squashed in, and people come past and they see who's inside. And so the rabbi's like squashed in, listening quietly, and he's got his pen and paper and taking notes. And the first person comes and tells the priest that you did 10 sins this week. He confesses 10 sins, and the priest says, well, you did 10 sins. Give $5 to charity and you'll be forgiven. So the rabbi's writing down 10 sins, $5 to charity. Next person comes along and tells the priest that he did 6 sins this week, and the priest says, okay, go give $3 to charity and you'll be forgiven. So the rabbi writes down again, 10 sins, $5, 6 sins, $3. Starting to see a pattern here, he's got a good head. Next person comes by and he did 2 sins, and the priest says, okay, give $1 to charity, we'll be forgiven, fine, goes on. And the priest turns to the rabbi and says, listen, I've got to run. We'll see, it's a piece of cake, you'll be fine. And he runs off. So the rabbi's sitting there looking at his notes and is like a bit nervous. He's like, I guess it's not that hard, I never done it. We'll see how we go. Next person comes along and says, that you need to be forgiven and confesses for doing 1 sin this week. And so the rabbi looks at his notes and he says, 10 sins, $5, 6 sins, $3, 2 sins, $1. He turns to the person and says, this week's 2 for $1. Go do another one, come back and we'll talk. Point being, like, what's the idea of being forgiven? Like, what is this? What does it mean to be forgiven? We come to Yom Kippur, it's Yom Kippur, in the Day of Atonement, Hashem forgives us. Does that mean that our actions don't really matter and it's all a story? And like, we tell children and we tell ourselves, and the rabbis tell us that everything we do makes a difference and it really matters. And when you do a mitzvah, it strengthens your connection to Hashem. And when you do the wrong thing, it diminishes your revealed connection to Hashem. But then Yom Kippur comes along and it all goes back to the way does that mean that the whole thing's a joke? It's not real? Obviously it is real. So if it's true that when we do Averos, when we don't do the right thing, when we do the wrong thing, it causes damage to our relationship, our connection with Hashem. I think of it as, and this is an analogy, a metaphor that's used, is it's like if you have a rope, right? If you're, I don't know, someone, let's say someone's going rock climbing or climbing down a cliff, and they have a rope that's keeping them secure. They don't really want, to have sharp edges of a rock cutting into the rope and starting to fray the rope, and then the rope gets a little bit thinner. That's not such a good situation to be in. And it's the same thing. We have a connection to Hashem, and when we do the wrong thing, the connection gets severed. It doesn't get completely cut off, but it gets reduced. It gets damaged, let's say. If it's true that the things we did that were wrong damaged or, blemished our connection to Hashem, if that's a real thing, then what does it mean Yom Kippur comes along and it all just gets better? It's like, what does that mean? How does that work? Obviously, we know it's not a joke. So what does it mean then? How is it that on one hand, these things are real and what we do really makes a difference, and at the same time, Yom Kippur comes and then it all goes away? You can't make real damage just go away. You've got to do something to fix it. If someone, we'll get to that. But if damage is real, then either the damage is going to stay or it needs to be repaired. Real damage doesn't just disappear because a certain day of the week came, so then the damage is all gone. So, you know what? We can actually continue straight from there. I'm going to guess, I don't know if it's 9 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10 or 19 times out of 20. In my experience, the majority of times that people go to a doctor, with symptoms, not feeling well, something's hurting, whatever it is, the majority of times in my experience, the doctor says, go home, drink a lot of water, get some rest. If you're not better in a week or in 5 days or 10 days or whatever it is, or if things get worse, come back and let me know. Right? Now, it could be that sometimes, especially with kids or certain people who have, personalities that they get very worked up about things and they make things bigger in their head than they really are. The doctor might basically be, doing placebo effect and just saying, go home, you'll probably feel better, it's fine. Because they know that maybe they might think it's not such a big deal. Sometimes there really is something going on. And you know what? Most of the time when something's going on, we don't need to do anything. Right, the most powerful healing facility or mechanism that exists in the world is our bodies. Right, in the bracha of Asher Yotza that we say in the morning blessings, we say it after using the restroom. We say, Refei Chol Basar, Hashem who heals all flesh, Umafli Lasos, and does wonders. If you think for a second about what goes on in a human body, every one of us is made out of trillions of cells. Every one of us right now has trillions of different cells that make us who we are. Now, if you would take, and we have different kinds of cells, right? We have skin cells and muscle cells and nerve cells and pancreas cells and liver cells, etc., etc., etc. Adipose cells, fat cells, all kinds of cells. If you would take any one of those trillions of cells and look at it under a really high resolution microscope, maybe an electron microscope, if you would imagine a cell being the size of this room, it's not like it's just this empty block. A cell magnified to the size of this room has thousands of things going on. It's busier than a street corner in Tokyo when it's not a pandemic. In any one cell in the body, there are thousands of things happening at the same time. Of those thousands of things, everything is working together. Everything, all the different reactions and processes communicate with each other, and everything has to be in perfect balance. And as soon as one thing in that cell gets out of balance, it affects all the other thousands of things that are happening. So everything has to be happening pretty much perfectly, thousands of things in one cell at any given time, and then we have trillions of those cells. Right, so I don't know if it's, what the term is, gazillions. Like, there are a literally unimaginable number of things happening in the body in perfect communication, in perfect balance. And mafli lasos, that's a wonder, the fact that it can happen. Really, it shouldn't be a question Why is someone not feeling well? I mean, obviously it's a question because we want to figure out what the problem is. But really the question is, how could anyone ever possibly feel well? How could life even exist? The number of things that have to happen perfectly. We're talking thousands of trillions of things, all in perfect balance just for life to exist, let alone to feel healthy and feel good, is literally impossible for us to even wrap our heads around that level of complexity and what the reality of that is like. There's no way we could ever create that or build it or design it. It'd be technically impossible. It's conceptually impossible. Which means that, you know, if the body's going to sort something out on its own, it's best to leave the body to sort it out. Because anything we do to interfere is interfering. And any treatment, any procedure, anything we do that interferes with the body always has some level of cost and some level of things that, you know, happen as a result that we might not want. Now, just to be clear, I'm not being critical of medicine. I'm a huge believer in the value of modern medicine. It's one of the greatest gifts that Hashem has given to mankind. Really good doctors are generally going to tend to err. I would say at least some really good doctors are going to tend to err on the side of, if this is probably going to be okay, let's not mix in unless we have to. Because mixing in always has a cost. If you have something that complex and you come and just start mixing in, there's no way that you're not going to be creating some sort of mess. Right now, I don't know, simple example. Yeah, I have a headache, I take some Tylenols, I take a couple of Tylenols, I take a couple of Advils. Is that going to have a huge impact? No, it's not. That being said, if someone takes a whole bottle of Advil or a whole bottle of Tylenol, God forbid, is going to be a big problem. Which means that there is a cost to taking these chemicals, to taking ibuprofen, to taking paracetamol and putting it into the body. Acetaminophen, so it's called here, right? Tylenol. It's just that the way these particular medications work is that they give effective benefit at a level where the cost of mixing in isn't very high, so it doesn't matter. And that's basically the balance of safe medication. You want something that's going to help without causing too much damage. But it doesn't mean they're not having an effect. It's just the effect is so tiny that thankfully it's safe to take. And the evidence is if someone takes too much, there could be a big problem. Right, so the body is the best option always. If it's an available option, the best choice is let the body take care of things, because the body can do things better than we can when it's going to do them. There are times when the body won't take care of things. Maybe there's a trauma or an injury that the body won't take care of. Maybe there's an issue with, you know, a person's body that they're not going to repair something, or it's an illness that's beyond that, at which point it makes sense for us to interfere and mix in and help. You know, in Baruch Hashem, we're very lucky that there are many, many, many different treatments and procedures and medications where the cost-benefit balance works out that we can get a benefit without a cost that makes it unworkable. Right? But if you ever have the option to just let the body take care of the problem, of course, it's the better option. The body will, if it's going to do the job, it's probably going to do it better than we are, and mixing in always has a risk. Now, I want to talk for a couple of minutes about stem cells and stem cell therapy generally. Does everybody know what stem cells are? Okay, so every one of us has many, many, many different kinds of cells in our bodies. So we have stem cells and muscle cells and nerve cells, etc., 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 liver cells and pancreas cells and blah, 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 blah. How many cells did we have when we first came into existence? Right? Every one of us started out as one cell. We had two half cells, one from each parent. Those two half cells came together and merged into one cell. That one cell was our original form of existence. Then what happened? That one cell, in that cell, every cell has a nucleus which has all our DNA, all our genes. That DNA was copied. That cell now had two copies of the DNA. The cell got bigger, bigger, bigger. One copy of each of the DNA went to each side of the cell. The cell pinched into half, and then we had two cells. Each of those cells copied the DNA, pinched into half, and became 4, and 8, and 16, and 32. And at the point of conception, when the child is conceived, when we originally come into existence, we all existed as one cell. Then that cell became 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and replicates very, very rapidly, and grows exponentially, and goes from 1 to millions and billions. Which kind of cell was that first cell? Was it a skin cell, or a muscle cell, or a nerve cell, or a different kind of cell? Stem cell, right? What does that mean? Stem cell. I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to explain. So, right, if a skin cell cannot turn into a nerve cell, and a nerve cell cannot turn into a muscle cell. One kind of cell can't turn into a different kind of cell. So, if every cell in our body, all of those different kinds of cells all came from that one cell, well, what kind of cell was it? It's called a stem cell. That was a cell that was that contains everything that's necessary for us to be who we are. All our DNA was in that one cell. The potential for blood cells was in that cell. The potential for skin cells was in that cell, and for nerve cells, etc., etc. Everything that any kind of cell needed was all in that cell, because that was a complete whole cell that had everything that was necessary. Then it made lots and lots and lots of copies, and hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of copies. And then some of the cells that are going to become the skin will have the things that skin cells don't need in the DNA. Those genes get turned off. It turns into a skin cell, and it starts to function as a skin cell. Once those cells become skin cells, they can only ever be skin cells generally, and they will continue to make more and more skin cells, right? And throughout our life, we're shedding skin every day, and the healthy skin underneath is making more copies, and new skin is created because the old skin cells make copies of themselves. We get more skin, right? But all the cells in our bodies came from that one original cell. If, let's say, now it depends. For example, someone gets a shallow cut in the skin. If we get a shallow cut in our skin, what happens? Again, 99 times out of 100, you don't do much of anything. You wash it out, maybe you put some antiseptic, you put a Band-Aid if necessary. 99 times we don't even probably need that. You put that on, and it gets better. What happens? The skin on both sides of the cut, those cells at the edge start to copy themselves and make new skin, and then the skin cells grow together and it closes up. Same thing with the tissue underneath the muscle, whatever it is, right? So the cells replicate themselves, take care of the problem. And any time when the body is going to take care of itself, it's better just not to intervene. Sometimes the cut is so big or so deep that it's not going to come together properly, and then we'll put stitches or whatever, something to help it heal. But if it's going to take care of itself, better not to mix in. Because when the body can do the job, it'll do it better than we can. Now, let's say, for example, something like nerve damage. Nerve cells, skin cells replicate very, very quickly. Damage to skin heals very quickly. On an hourly basis, you can see a skin injury healing. Nerve cells don't grow like that. Nerve cells can grow extremely slowly, which is why nerve damage, generally speaking, if someone gets a cut in their skin, it's not what's the worst thing that, assuming it's not a deep cut that affects any internal organs, what's the biggest catastrophe that will happen from someone's getting a cut in their skin? Maybe if it's on their face and they're going to have a scar. Not to downplay the impact of that and the fact that that makes a difference to someone's life, but it's not life-threatening. It's just a matter of aesthetics. In terms of health, there's no problem whatsoever. Nerve damage can be catastrophic because nerves don't just grow that quickly and heal and fix things up, right? So question is, if the nerves can't grow and just heal the problem, and then, nerve damage, just grow and repair and that's it. Well, why can't we just fix the nerves? Why can't we just make some new nerve tissue and put it in? Right? And it's on one hand, it's a no-brainer question. On the other hand, it's also a stupid question. Because we can't make nerve tissue, we can't make nerve cells, we can't make nerves. But we don't know how to do that. We're not capable of doing that. Nerve cells can make nerves. It's the same way that skin cells make skin, right? And sometimes, let's say someone has really bad skin damage, maybe they'll get a skin graft. We can't create skin, but the body can. So sometimes something that happens is, maybe cosmetic surgeons will take skin from one part of the body, put it in another part, that will heal up, the other skin will heal, and everything ends up better. But ultimately, it's still the body healing itself. We can't make skin. The body can make skin. Skin can make skin. We can't. We can't make nerves. The problem is that nerves don't really make nerves either effectively. They can grow, but it's very slow, and if we have a way to make it heal faster, that would be a very helpful thing for a lot of people. So what can we do? The nerves heal really slowly. We can't make nerves. Sometimes nerves can be grafted, but this is the whole idea of the importance of stem cell research. And stem cell research is very controversial for a reason, right? Because there are very, very strong ethical questions about it. And if something has a lot of ethical questions about the morality, it's like, really, no, we really shouldn't be doing that. On one hand, maybe it makes sense to dismiss it. But on the other hand, if this is something that has the ability to heal millions of people from damage that can't be healed any other way, it's not something that we want to be so quick to just dismiss. This is why it's controversial. Why is it that stem cell therapy is so powerful, and it's controversial because of how powerful it is, and it could potentially, if we can really figure it out, it could potentially take us to places and abilities of healing that were unimaginable just a short time ago. And hopefully things in the future, if we could get around the controversy and the moral things, and if it could be done in a way that has no ethical questions, that would be amazing, and get to a place where we could have things, down the road that we can't even imagine now with the technology we have. What's the power of stem cells? The power of stem cells is, right, that original cell that each of us started out as was a stem cell. That was a cell that had everything in it. That was like our original, complete, pure form. And then the cells differentiate. What happens when they differentiate is the part of the cell that we don't need gets switched off. And now the cell has a specific thing. It can do this and it can't do that. A skin cell is not a muscle cell, and vice versa. But a stem cell can become any kind of cell. And it can replicate infinitely, very quickly, and then it can differentiate into any kind of cell necessary. And that's how we become who we are. Now, on one hand, stem cells are incredibly powerful and valuable because of that. On the other hand, if stem cells are so amazing, would it be like really good if all of us was just made out of a bunch of stem cells? If stem cells are more powerful than skin cells and more powerful than muscle cells and nerve cells, etc., would it be like super awesome if all of us were just a bunch of stem cells and they never differentiated? No, because we wouldn't be people. We wouldn't have a mind, wouldn't have a body, we'd just be a lump of stem cells. Right, so we have two things on opposite sides of each other. On one hand, the thing that makes us who we are and the value that we have as people is a result of having these cells that are differentiated and limited and defined and can't interchange and can't replicate infinitely. And it's a good thing that we made out of that and not just made out of stem cells, because if we were just made out of stem cells, we'd just be a lump of stem cells. That being said, there's incredible power and value in stem cells because they're the pure, original, unadulterated form that can hypothetically correct anything because it's all in there. The concept generally of stem cell therapy is, let's say if someone has nerve damage that isn't going to be healed and we have that's not going to heal itself effectively, and we have nothing else we can do to help. If we could figure out how to manage stem cell behavior, and we could get hold of stem cells and put them into the system of the body in that environment so that then they could replicate and differentiate into nerve cells and fill that gap, the nerve could be repaired. Any physical trauma to the body could hypothetically be repaired by stem cells. Why? Because stem cells are the original form of the person that everything came from. And they have everything in them, which means there's no damage that they can't repair, hypothetically. If they were programmed to circulate through the body and repair damage, if that's the way that our genes were programmed to have stem cells circulating consistently and repairing damage, we would, I guess, perhaps to a degree be almost immortal because they could hypothetically just repair anything. And that is a very strong equivalent and metaphor for what happens on Yom Kippur. Right? If someone has nerve damage, and let's say that we can get to a stage of stem cell therapy where we could repair that nerve damage. So the nerve damage gets repaired by the stem cells. Does that mean the nerve damage was never real? No, it was real, and the person was missing that function until it was repaired. And chances are when it gets repaired, they're still going to have to learn the pathway all over again, to learn how to use that new nerve tissue effectively. The body's going to have to learn how to work with it and manage it. And it was the stem cell therapy that repaired the damage, and had that stem cell therapy not been employed, the damage wouldn't have been repaired. The damage was very real. And yes, there's no way we could have ever repaired that, but the body can. And if the body itself can't, stem cells could, hypothetically. The question is, can we get to the point where we can really make use of that effect? Now, the same way that we made out of all different components and parts of the body, and each part of the body is limited to its function, it's defined, and when it gets damaged, you know, that different parts of the body have different limits on how much they can replicate and grow and repair. But it's those different kind of cells that make us who we are. And without those cells, we'd just be stem cells, not a person. It's also true that stem cells have the ability to repair any damage, hypothetically, because they are complete. They have everything. That's where we come from. That's our original form of existence. And everything in us came from that. So those stem cells have everything necessary to generate, create, repair any part of the body. And they obviously have to, because that's where every part of the body came from. So obviously they have the potential to create every part of the body. And the same exact thing is true of the nature of our nefesh elokis, of our neshama. Right? The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, at the beginning of chapter 2, very basic Tanya. The Alter Rebbe says, "V'hanefesh hashemis b'Yisrael," the second nefesh that each of us has, the neshama, the nefesh elokis, chelek elokah limal mamish, is literally a part, a piece, an instance of God, of the Creator. Now, how many different parts does Hashem have? Yeah? How many different parts? Sorry? 7 or 17? 0. Sorry? How many different parts does Hashem have? So there are the spheres, and then there are 10 midas, and each one's made up of the 7 midas, and each one has 10 spheres. That's true. But that's not Hashem. That's the spheres that Hashem creates and operates with, right? But Hashem himself doesn't have parts. Right? If this is my right hand and this is my left hand, that means this is a left hand and not a right hand. This is defined and limited to being a left hand, left upper limb, right upper limb. If Hashem has different parts, that means Hashem is defined and limited, and this is the way that Hashem is defined. That's in Hebrew, we have a word for that. It's called firah. That's a problem in our belief in Hashem if we think that Hashem has different parts. That's not to say that if someone doesn't understand the depth of this concept, they have a problem, obviously. But if we understand really what it means, what absolute infinity means, absolute infinity cannot be defined, it cannot be described, it cannot be measured. They can't be portions by definition, because portions, parts, differences, you can only have differences if there are differences between things. To have differences between things, each one needs to be described and defined as something and not something else. If there's nothing that it's not, then there's nothing that's different from it. Right? So Hashem doesn't have parts. Is every one of our neshamas the same? Do we all have that? Obviously not. Like, we're all very different. So if every one of us, so Nefesh Hashem is a part of Hashem, and there's one Hashem, and Hashem doesn't have different parts, then by definition, all of our neshamas have to be identical. They can't be different from each other if they're all a part of Hashem, and Hashem doesn't have different parts. So how is it that it's simultaneously true, both that our neshama is a part of Hashem, and each of our neshamas is different? How does that work? The way that works is that there's the way that our neshama starts out in its original purest form. And at that point, they actually are all identical. Everyone starts out as an instance of Hashem, of godliness, of divinity, and they're all identical. But that's not the neshama that we have, because that's indescribable and indivisible, etc. But the way that our neshamas are effectively functioning in our bodies, they're making us who we are. There are different parts, right? There's the intellect and the emotions, the seichel and the midas, and the chachma, bina, das, chesed, gvura, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, malchus, all these different parts. And each one of us, the chesed, the chachma, the bina, the das, the chesed, the gvura, tiferet, each one of us has different chachma and different bina and different das. Right, and once you get to the combination of the three, just in the seichel, we have, in this room, we have almost a million, right? We have not 8 people. That's 3 to the power of 8 is the amount of variation that you could have with all the differences between just our chachma and bin das. That's not including midas, right? So the variation is enormous. Because every chachma of every person, every nefesh is different, and the bina and the das. How does that happen if they all start out the same? Basically, the neshamas, they journey through the world. Every neshama has a journey from when it becomes an instance of Hashem, chelek elokam mimal. That chelek elokam mimal has a process of development, let's say. It's a journey, it's developed. It takes on characteristics, it takes on layers on top of itself. And as those layers are layered on top of this pure, undefinable, indescribable, indivisible instance of absolute infinity, as things are layered on top, the picture of these layers starts to become, each complete picture with the layers is different, because the layers are different for each one. So for each of us, we have a neshama, they all started out identical because they're all part of Hashem, which can't be different. But then they journey through the world, and every neshama goes through the world of Atzilus, and it experiences the world, and it takes some characteristics, and each neshama takes some characteristics that are a little bit different, right? And then they experience the next world and take on different characteristics. And by the end of that journey, they're all very different. But they all started out the same. Historically, every one of our neshamas started out identical as an instance of undefinable, indescribable, indivisible, absolute infinity. Every cell in our body, the cells in our bodies are all different from each other, but every one of those cells historically started out as that one original stem cell with the complete potential to become any kind of cell necessary and to replicate effectively infinitely. Same thing. All those parts of the neshama all traced back to who we are deep down underneath those layers, which is a part of Hashem, where we're all identical, and where all of the parts of our neshama come from the same place. It's just that they're differentiated and separated, the same way that all the parts of our body come from stem cells and they replicate and differentiate and separate. The same way that if you could access and figure out how to manage stem cells, you could hypothetically correct any damage, because there's no healthy cell that stem cells cannot create. Obviously, because every cell comes from there. So there's no cell they can't create, hypothetically. The question is, can we figure out how to make that happen?
Can you write these words?
Stem cell. No, but sorry. Stem cell. Google Translate. So the same way that a stem cell could hypothetically repair any damage, because there's nothing that can't be created by stem cells. That part of who we are, that chelek elokam mimal, that's absolutely infinite, indefinable, indescribable, indivisible, can repair any damage. Can you damage Hashem? Can Hashem be damaged? Obviously not. It's conceptually inconceivable for Hashem to be damaged. If Hashem cannot be damaged, and Hanefesh Hashem is Yisrael Chelek elokam mimal is a part of Hashem, then can it be damaged? No. So how is it that when we don't do mitzvahs and we do averos, we cause blemishes in our neshama if our neshama is a part of Hashem which can't be blemished, because that original form has many layers on top and different things that are layered on top. And those layers can be blemished, those layers can be damaged. But if the thing that is really who we are most truly and most deeply, which is a part of Hashem, absolute infinity, if that would circulate throughout all the layers of our nefesh and saturate everything, which it usually doesn't, then all damage would disappear, it would cease to exist, because that can't be damaged, that can't be blemished. Now, same way as with stem cells in a person, in order for us to be people, the stem cells need to, recede into the background historically and allow cells to differentiate and become limited and defined, because that's what a person is. It's the same thing with our etzem nefesh. Our etzem nefesh, this part of us that is really just absolute infinity, is generally behind the scenes under many, many, many layers of soul that are on top of it. Because without those different layers of soul, we wouldn't be people the way we are. We'd all just be part of Hashem, and then there wouldn't be much point. So there do need to be these layers on top. That being said, right, if the same way that a person needs to be made out of different cells, but if we could figure out, hypothetically, if we could figure out a way to just program stem cells to just circulate around the body, any damage, anything that's messed up, just go in, get rid of it, repair the damage. Hypothetically, I mean, it's a nice dream. If we could do that, it'd be good. Same thing here. If we could get the essence of who we are to just circulate through all the layers of the soul, any damage that we cause would disappear, because that's now been saturated by absolute infinity, Hashem himself, who cannot be damaged. And that's what Yom Kippur does. The nature, remember we talked last class 2 weeks ago, about how on Rosh Hashanah all the time is created. And the nature of the time determines what can happen inside that time. So the time of Yom Kippur, the operating system in which the universe exists on Yom Kippur, is an operating system that turns on the etzem nefesh and makes it circulate and makes it saturate every layer of the soul. If that happens, the damage disappears. Now, that's why there's this expression, Yom Kippur machaper, Yom Kippur atones. Right, we can do tshuva, and there's a lot of repair and fixing things we can do through tshuva. But what Yom Kippur achieves is way beyond what any tshuva could ever achieve. It's a different category. The same way that what stem cells could hypothetically do would be beyond anything that other more specific medical technology could ever do, because this is the original form that everything came from. It can take care of everything. If that essence of who we are, which is absolutely infinite, is going to just saturate everything, circulate and saturate all the layers of the soul, is going to take care of everything way beyond what we could ever achieve through tshuva. This doesn't mean that because we have Yom Kippur, don't worry about tshuva. Yom Kippur is going to be stem cell therapy, everything is going to be perfect. It doesn't work that way. We do have to do tshuva before Yom Kippur, but the distinction is, the reason we have to do tshuva before Yom Kippur is not because it's the tshuva, the process that we are engaging in, that is causing the atonement. The tshuva does repair damage up to a point. The reason that tshuva is necessary before Yom Kippur is not because Yom Kippur couldn't do its job without tshuva. It doesn't need the tshuva. Yom Kippur can repair everything just like that. It's because the way that Yom Kippur is designed, let's say, is that in order for it to be activated, it's a prerequisite for us to do teshuvah in order for the potential of Yom Kippur to be activated. Right? It's imagine, if someone needed stem cell therapy and there was a doctor who could do the stem cell therapy, and the doctor said, you know what? Maybe the doctor, let's say, someone who has a very unhealthy lifestyle. They sit on the couch and eat potato chips all day, don't do anything else. They don't get up and move around. very, not ideal lifestyle for their health. And maybe the doctor's looking at this person and saying, I really want to find a way to motivate this person to start behaving in a little bit more healthy way. So you know what? I'm going to tell the patient, we could do the stem cell therapy, but you need to start exercising. For the next week, you need to do 2 minutes of exercise every day. And for the week after, you're going to do 5, 10. And after 10 weeks, and you get up to doing a half hour of exercise every day, then at that point, we'll be able to do the stem cell therapy. Does the exercise have anything to do with the stem cell therapy? Nothing. The doctor could do the stem cell therapy right now. The doctor's just saying, you know what, I'm going to make this a prerequisite for that because I want you to do this. Now, the same way, the stem cell therapy could do its thing. Stem cell therapy doesn't need anything else. The power of Yom Kippur doesn't need Teshuva. Yom Kippur can just take care of the whole thing, boom, like that. It's just that the way Hashem structured it, we need to do Teshuva in order for the stem cell therapy, the power of Yom Kippur to be activated. So we do need to do Teshuva. But it's important to remember that's not because the effect of Yom Kippur is like built off of the Teshuva, because that would make Yom Kippur much smaller than it really is. Yom Kippur is in a whole different league to Teshuva. It's just that in order for it to be activated, the Teshuva is like the switch that we need to flip to turn on the impact of Yom Kippur. That makes sense so far? Question? Did you find a good translation for stem cells? Did it help? Yeah. Okay. So I'll put that into Google Translate and translate it back to English. Okay, so now sukkahs. So this is something that it's, I remember many years wondering, like, what are we celebrating on Sukkot, right? We have on Pesach has a number of names. It's Zman Cherosenu, it's the festival of our liberation. Sukkot is just every Yom Tov has its description. Sukkot in the Sukkim in Chumash is called Chag, festival. It's not Chag Ha, the festival of something. I mean, it is also, but it's just called Chag. When the Pasuk just says Chag, without any specific description of which Chag, of which festival, it's not Pesach, it's not Shavuos, it's Sukkot. So Sukkot is something that is just festival, celebration, period. No description, it's not a celebration of something, it's just celebration. What does that mean? What are we celebrating? We didn't just celebrate it, there's nothing to celebrate. And this is something that's really, really deep and really, really powerful. Now, there are 3 different parts of this picture we're going to bring together. Number one is, what is it that we're celebrating on Sukkot? Behind the scenes, conceptually. And not only with Sukkot is it called Sukkot, Chazal say that Misha lo ra simchas beis Hashem v'minamav lo ra simcha la'olam. I'm going to translate. Someone who didn't see simchas beis Hashem, I'm going to elaborate, never saw joy, real joy, because any other form of joy doesn't compare to simchas beis Hashem. What's simchas beis Hashem? Literally, simchas, the celebration of, the joy of beis Hashem, the house of drawing water. So in the Beis Hamikdash, every day, every sacrifice, it was called Nisuch Hayam. They would pour wine, and different sacrifices have different amounts of wine, and different amounts of oil mixed with the flour, and different amounts of wine that's poured. So pouring wine was a regular thing that happened every day of the year in the Beis Hamikdash. Only on Sukkot, something that was added is pouring of water, Nisuch Hamayim. In the Beis Hamikdash, specifically on Sukkot, there was a mitzvah to pour water. And the celebration of that, and so they would go and draw the water and get the water out to be able to pour it. And the celebration of the drawing of the water, if you didn't see that, you never saw joy. It's like, like that's the thing that's so exciting is drawing water. Like, yeah, I get it, it's water, it's a mitzvah, we're pouring on the Mizbeach and serving Hashem. But that's the one thing that's in a different category to everything else. Like, I don't know. I mean, frankly, generally, I'd be more excited about most of the time about a good bottle of wine than like a bottle of water. So we pour wine every day, no, nothing. Pour the water, oh, that's something special. If you didn't see that joy, you never saw any joy. What's going on? What's the thing about water? And these two things, this disproportionate celebration associated with water and Sukkot is also going to have to do with the fact that Sukkot immediately follows Yom Kippur. So the true nature of Yom Kippur leads into Sukkot, and whatever it's leading into, which is the theme of Sukkot and what we celebrate so strongly and with such a unique level of joy, is expressed and represented in the metaphor of the water. And if you haven't seen the joy of the water, well, you've never seen joy. What's the joy of the water? What's going on? So there's a very interesting halacha about water, right? And the halachas of brachas, when we say brachas before we eat or drink something. Anytime you're going to put food or drink in your mouth, you have to say a bracha before, a bracha rishon. Right? There's also a bracha achrona, the blessings we make afterwards. Any bracha achrona, any after blessing, there's a certain amount you have to eat or drink in order to have to make the blessing after. But even a sip, a drop, a nibble requires a bracha before. One exception. Does anybody know what the exception to that rule is? When? Always? If you're thirsty and you go get a cup of water, do you have to make a bracha? Yeah. If a doctor tells you that, if a doctor would tell someone that they need to take a medication, and when they take this medication, they need to have it with a cup of water. And the person wakes up in the morning and takes their medication and they're really not thirsty, they're really not interested in drinking the water, but they have to drink it, they don't have to make a bracha. Now, if the doctor would say this medication has to be in an acidic environment, needs some vitamin C, take this medication with a cup of orange juice. If you don't want the orange juice, you still have to make a bracha because it's sweet, it has flavor. You have to make a bracha because you're experiencing the flavor whether you would have wanted it or not. So there is a benefit that you are having even though you didn't want it. If you're not thirsty, there is no benefit to drinking water. There is no value to water if you're not thirsty. There's no flavor, it's not exciting, there's nothing unique or special about it, it's just water. Notice the first part of the sentence, if you're not thirsty. If someone is thirsty, there's nothing in the world that will come close to being as interesting or as exciting as water. If someone's dehydrated, someone's really dehydrated and very thirsty, they would throw everything else in the garbage, all the money in the world, all the food in the world, just to get some water. So water is this very interesting sort of ironic thing that on one hand, it's the single most important thing in the world, and if we don't have it, it's literally catastrophic. You can last quite a while without food. You can't last quite a while without water. You can't last very long. A lack of water is catastrophic. That being said, once we have it, this doesn't have any specific flavor. There's nothing specifically interesting or exciting about it. And if we're not missing it, we're not going to be very interested or excited. We don't notice it. To the degree that if you're not thirsty, you don't have to make a bracha on it because there's no personal benefit if you're not thirsty, as opposed to if you are. It's by far the most valuable thing on earth and more valuable than everything else combined. So what is it that water represents? When we understand what water is a metaphor for and what it represents in terms of who we are or part of our experience, we will understand why the water is associated with such an unparalleled joy and how that follows on from Yom Kippur and how this all comes together. So, we were talking about the stem cells versus the specific cells, or the chelek elokam. This original part of us, the part of Hashem, which was absolutely infinite and indefinable and indescribable and indivisible. What can you say about it? What can you say? What adjectives, what description, what ta'ar could you give to that? None. Because an adjective, by definition, when we describe something as such and such, we are describing it as not being the opposite of that. If someone's tall, they're not short. Short, not tall. Fair, not dark. Dark, not fair. Blue eyes are not green. Green eyes are not blue. Neither of them are brown. Brown eyes are neither of them, right? That a description by definition depends on there being differentiation, and we're describing the unique characteristics. If something is infinite and has no specific characteristics, you can't describe it, you can't define it, and you know what? Honestly, it's pretty boring to talk about. Would life be interesting if we were all just chelak al-kamimal, or if we were all just stem cells? Would be super powerful and absolutely infinite, and you know what? It wouldn't be very interesting. We'd all be identical, we'd all be infinite, there wouldn't be much point almost, and it wouldn't be exciting at all. It's once we start to have specific, unique characteristics, everything's different, things are more exciting. So, and it's the same thing with water. Water, the fact that water doesn't have flavor. Water is not sweet, it's not tart, it's not tangy, it's got no color, it's got no specific characteristics that make it interesting or exciting. It's just water, neutral, can't really, there's not much to say about it. It's just like the etzem hanefesh. There's no color, there's no seichel, there's no midas, there are no characteristics, it's just infinity. Can't describe it, there's nothing to say. It's kind of boring, kind of lame. Same way that water, if you're not thirsty, is kind of boring and kind of lame. That being said, if someone's missing their etzem hanefesh, is it like, oh, that's just boring and lame, it doesn't matter? No, then you're not going to exist. If we don't have water, if someone, God forbid, doesn't have access to water and they're thirsty and dehydrated, you can bet your bottom dollar the last thing on earth they're going to say is, oh, water's so lame and boring, who cares? They'll do anything to get some water, despite how lame and boring it is. And it's not a contradiction. It's not, oh, we usually think that water is lame and boring, but really it's not. No, it is. Water is lame and water is boring. It also happens to be the foundation of our existence and the single most important thing we need. Once we have it, lame and boring. You drink it, you don't even need to make a bracha. If it would be missing, we'd appreciate just how valuable water is. It's the exact same thing. The etzem hanefesh, who we are behind the scenes. It's infinite, it's indescribable, it's indivisible, it's lame and boring. It's much more interesting to have seichel and midas and different characteristics and natures, and each thing has something unique, and they all interact together, and we have a system and different people, personalities and characters and environment and dynamics between people and relationships. All of that comes from the different differentiated characteristics. That's not from the etzem hanefesh. The etzem hanefesh is like super lame and boring. We're all identical. We can only say it's lame and boring because we have it, we have what we need, so it's not interesting to talk about anymore. But ultimately, that's actually who we are, right? Now, which kind of person, we could talk about it first of all in terms of confidence, let's say, and this is something that makes it very important to be careful when dealing with children specifically about, how we compliment and encourage them. And it's something, it's a delicate balance and it's tricky. It's not simple. Baruch Hashem, deal with children on a daily basis, and I'm going to make it sound so simple. It's not so simple in reality. But conceptually, right, if a parent or a teacher always compliments a child's achievements, wow, you did so well on that test, I'm so proud of you. Wow, you did this so well, I'm so proud of you. And if the child is constantly getting that message, when I do good things, my parents are proud of me. What do they start to think? The way that their mind develops is, when I do good things, I am now a person who is worth being proud of. I am worthy of pride and love and respect and honor, etc. And the variations evolve as we mature, but I am worthy of those things when I perform, when I achieve. Am I worthy of love and respect and honor, just me, if I don't do anything? Well, apparently not, because I got the reinforcement when I did things. It's very dangerous for a whole lot of reasons. It's even if someone has what it takes to be a very high achiever and to always be achieving at the level that they'll get those compliments every 10 minutes of their life for the rest of their life. It's just not a healthy way to live, to feel that in order to be valid and to be worth it, And to be worthy, I need to be achieving and doing things, because it's not true. We are valid and worthy and infinitely valuable because of who we are. It doesn't matter how smart we are or are not. It doesn't matter how kind or anything we are or are not. None of that has anything to do. Every one of us is an instance of divinity, is a part of Hashem. And every one of us, as a part of Hashem, as Hashem's creation, as a person, as a Jew, each one of those layered on top of the other just makes it more and more the same thing, emphasized and built upon to a greater degree. It doesn't matter what we do or don't do or our characteristics or anything else. Every single one of us is worthy, is valuable, is infinitely valuable and infinitely worthy, period. No questions asked. Now, a person who has been raised in a way that's nurtured, and I'm making it sound so simple, it's not a simple thing to figure out to do at all. If anybody has a way to make it simple, please let me know. But if someone is raised in a way that the message they're getting is, you are valuable, you are worthy, you are worthwhile, you are loved and deserve to be loved, period, just because you exist. Just because of who you are, nothing else needs to come into the picture. That person, which of those two people, now, is it more exciting to be achieving things than to just exist? Of course it is. It's more fun, it's more exciting, and practically it also makes things happen. But which confidence is going to be more deeply fulfilling? The confidence that comes from, oh, I'm really capable and I got lots of things done today. I'm confident because I know I can get things done. Or the confidence that comes from a person being firm and clear about the fact that they matter and they're worthy and they're worthwhile and deserve to and are loved. No questions asked. That second confidence, it's not so exciting, it's not so dramatic, but it's going to be much more powerful and much more fulfilling. That person's going to be. Now, we're talking about it conceptually. It's not like it's either or. Ideally, we can and should, best case scenario, have both. But the confidence, the fulfillment, the depth of joy that comes from just appreciating the value of who we are, period, is way deeper, way more powerful, and way more fulfilling than the joy and confidence, etc., that comes from making things happen and from the excitement. It's like wine and water. Wine is more tasty, more exciting, more interesting than water. And water seems kind of lame, right? And if you look at someone, if we don't understand this concept, and you look at someone who's just very at peace, very confident about their value as an individual, and not really very worked up and worried about achieving and making things happen. Well, you might look at them and think, oh, this person is like a bit lame. It might seem like it because they don't get very excited and motivated and driven about everything else, but ultimately they're actually more profoundly happy and in a state of well-being and fulfilled than everybody else. What they have is less exciting, but it's deeper and more profound, and ultimately of far greater value. And again, it doesn't mean it's either or. And this is the thing that the water represents. Water represents that thing that's not exciting, it's not unique, it's not differentiated, it's kind of lame and boring. But it's also the thing that's the most important. And if it would be missing, there would be nothing else to talk about. No water, no life, period. If someone doesn't have water, they're not going to need food or clothes or anything else, right? Once there's water, we can worry about everything else. No water, no life, no other details. And that's true at the same time as water is lame and boring. And if we have it, we're not interested in it anymore and having more. The Etzem HaNefesh is who we are, and it provides the most necessary and the most profoundly fulfilling and rewarding experience. And if we can really tune into appreciating that, the joy that comes from appreciating that we have the infinity of Hashem inside of us, deep down behind the layers and the skills and the achievements and the unique differences and all of that. Beneath all of that, we have the infinity of Hashem within us that lame, indefinable, indescribable, not exciting, not unique infinity of Hashem, if we can appreciate what it means that we have that inside, the joy that is going to give, the confidence, the sense of security, the well-being that's going to come from that is going to be incomparably greater than the joy, fulfillment, confidence, security that comes from achieving a lot, from the excitement, from the things that are unique and exciting and different and colorful and tasty, etc. All of those things. Yes, it's less exciting, but it's also incomparably greater in terms of the depth and power of the reward that it provides. And this is, it actually says in Kabbalah that the schach of the sukkah, obviously it's metaphorically, comes from the smoke of the incense, the Keteris on Yom Kippur. So the most unique thing that in Yom Kippur, in the Beis HaMikdash, there were a lot of things, and there were some korbanos that were different. The thing that was most unique, that only ever happened once a year period, was the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, going into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. Only the Kohen Gadol was ever allowed to go in there, and even he could only go in there on Yom Kippur, and he would burn incense on the Mizbeach. He would burn incense next to, in front of the Aron where the Kruvim were, the Ark with the cherubs on top. And that incense, which is the thing that is the quintessential service of Yom Kippur, from that smoke of that incense, that sort of spreads up above metaphorically and makes the schach of the sukkah. What that means is that the idea of Sukkot, what Sukkot is about, is an outcome of and a derivative of what Yom Kippur is about. What's Yom Kippur about? Yom Kippur is about who we are deep, deep, deep down behind all the layers, which is why it's Yom HaKippurim, why it's a day of atonement. Because who we are deep, deep down behind all those layers is a part of Hashem, which cannot be blemished and cannot be damaged. So when that circulates and saturates, the damage becomes irrelevant, it ceases to exist. Now, once we have that on Yom Kippur, once we experience and engage with and get a taste of that etzem, who we are, we have literally the absolute, indescribable, indefinable, indivisible infinity of Hashem inside of us. And not only we have it inside of us, ultimately that's the deepest, truest thing that makes us who we are. And yes, there's nothing specific or unique about it. It's identical for all of us. And it's lame and boring, just like water. Without that, we wouldn't be here. And that's ultimately, despite not being as exciting and unique, it's also the thing that's most important, most profound, and ultimately going to be the most rewarding. And the same way that someone who is in touch with who they are as a person, regardless of achievements, talents, gifts, everything else, someone who's in touch with and confident about and secure in the value they have because they exist, period, that person's going to be far more secure and have a far greater sense of well-being than someone who doesn't have that, but is doing all kinds of fun and achieving and everything else. That person's likely, if they don't figure something out in a way to connect more deeply, it's not sustainable. It doesn't mean you can't have both. But the less exciting connection with who we really are is incomparably going to make us more confident, more secure, and give us a far deeper sense of joy in life. Everything in life, all of a sudden, is amazing, is beautiful, is valuable, is meaningful. Because we're in touch with that boring, lame, indefinable, not unique water part of who we are. And that's the message of Sukkot. Sukkot is the pouring of the water. On Yom Kippur, we accessed the water, the etzem nefesh, that not unique, lame part of who we are, not exciting, but it's also the essence of who we are and the most important and profound and meaningful. On the tail end of that, we now have Sukkot. We celebrate that. The Sukkah is made out of the smoke of Yom Kippur. The joy of Sukkot is the joy of who we are, the fact that we exist, the fact that we are who we are. We have that etzem nefesh. We have a piece of Hashem inside us, regardless of how smart we are or not, or anything else, or what we do achieve or don't achieve or can achieve or can't achieve. That's got zero value relative to who we are. And if we're in touch with that, the magnitude of the joy and the well-being that comes from being plugged into and connected to and in touch with who we are at the deepest level, there's no joy that can come close to that. And that's why Chazal say, one who has not seen the joy of the drawing of the water which is unique to Sukkot, right after Yom Kippur, after we access that Etzem HaNefesh, the joy that comes from being connected to that, you haven't seen that, you haven't seen real joy. There's no excitement or achievement or experience or anything that is even remotely in the same category as the deep joy and fulfillment that comes from being in touch with who we are. Ma'aseh Tova. Everyone should have an easy fast and an amazing year. Everyone around the world, every year around the world, regardless, should just have a good year, period. Simple, no explanations. Everyone should have a mass in the trade. Should be good. Thank you. Sorry if that was a bit heavy. I think I need a reply from that. Now?
Like what actually we do?
Nowadays? I mean, Simchat Beit HaShoeva really was in the time of the Beis Hamikdash when we did the Nisuch HaMayim. Now, here in Crown Heights, we dance to remember, because Simchat Beit HaShoeva, they did dance, and it says that Chamim HaChigolim would dance and juggle, and they would dance until the morning and fall asleep on each other while they were dancing. That's what it was. They were really celebrating the water. And if you don't understand the message of the water, it's like, but they danced in a way, but people don't fall asleep on each other's shoulders dancing until the morning at weddings. What's so much more exciting about water than the wedding of Bar Mitzvah? Anything. So the Shoeva means they would draw the water to get ready to pour it the next day. So at night time they would collect the water. Yes. They would dance and celebrate Hasimcha Shel Zeh Shehem Shoavim Et Hamayim B'Shvil Zeh. It's not Simcha Shehem dancing all night. The Chazal אומרים שמי שלא ראה שמחת בית השואבה לא ראה שמחה מימיו. It's like, whoa, settle down. It's not. It's like the Hasimcha Shel HaHakara Shel Emet Hachi Amok, who we are. It's true. It's כמו מים. It's also interesting or exciting about the כמו שהמים מרבא את הנפש. זה הכי, fulfilling. בבקשה. Thank you.